Tonight, everybody knew.
What is the legacy that you're looking to leave behind?
That I changed the world and I have fun doing it.
Diddy, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean John, Sean Combs all have one thing in common. They were all accused of violent crimes, and they are all the same man. Why Hollywood and New York's elite tolerate accused predators in their midst. Dangerous water.
Dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down.
The watery grave deep in Baltimore's harbor offers some tough lessons. How we stop thinking about the dangers of airplanes and ships. Calling Barack, the White House sends an SOS to Obama. Can he save Dems from their worst nightmare? And you will comply.
You know, they're coming in the showrooms. They don't want electric. I'm not so sure what the Biden administration is looking at here and why they're pushing this so hard.
8 states will force drivers to abandon gas-powered cars. Will forcing Americans to go electric work?
You're going to get swarmed by an army of the dead. Why not get swarmed in an EV?
Welcome to the Ferris Show on television. First tonight, where is Puff Daddy? One of the world's most famous rappers now joins a notorious list of powerful men in entertainment and politics, long accused of terrible sex crimes, who celebrities and America's elite love to party with. This is new video from TMZ showing the aftermath of the police raid on his mansions in Los Angeles and Miami. And now that federal agents have searched his 2 homes in a sex trafficking investigation, the world suddenly says, we had no idea. This is so shocking and so surprising to so many that Puff Daddy can be involved in something so scandalous. Well, they knew exactly what was going on and nobody paid attention. More accurately, perhaps, nobody wanted to pay attention. They wanted to party with him at his white party in the Hamptons. It was the place to be. He was the new Gatsby. They wanted to go on his jets. They wanted to hang out in his mansions. For example, here is Diddy with Justin Bieber back in 2009. Bieber, at the time, was 15 years old. And Diddy spoke about how he would be spending the next 48 hours with a 15-year-old.
You know, where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose. But it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him.
Because that's totally normal, not creepy at all. A 15-year-old living with a powerful hip-hop mogul. What possibly went on at Diddy's homes? Now, you would think that people would ask those questions, they would care. Well, they didn't, because Diddy was Diddy. That's how the rich and powerful work. Here is the singer Usher on Howard Stern's show.
But I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, you know, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place.
At the time, Usher was 13. A 13-year-old knew something was wrong, and you're telling me that none of the people at any of the fancy parties had no idea? There's also a new claim from the journalist Tourer. In an interview last night with MSNBC, he described why one of his family members was allegedly fired as Diddy's intern.
Years later, they finally came out, and this is a male, and said that Puff had said, come home, stay the night with me, or the internship is over. And they said, absolutely not. He said, absolutely not. And the internship ended.
Huh. That was many years ago, evidently. But nobody cared. The accusations that Diddy raped and drugged women go back decades, and nobody cared. Why is that? Because he was rich, he was famous, liberal, and he threw some great parties. Of course, he denied all the accusations, but nobody really dug that deeply. Nobody cared why he had custody of a 15-year-old or what he was showing a 13-year-old. Now suddenly, the headlines about his misbehavior are everywhere, like this from the New York Post. Sean Diddy Combs' Miami mansion in chaos. Ex-assistant claims women were only someone he would like to have sex with or not like to have sex with. Obviously, the language we've had to slightly edit for family-friendly television. We have no idea where the billionaire rapper is. Perhaps if there is an indictment, we will soon see a cable news chase like OJ's white Ford Bronco, except this time it will be P. Diddy's private jet. And the pearl clutching then can really, really begin. The celebrities he hung out with will say they had no idea, much like they did with Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein. But Justin Bieber knew. At 13 years old, Usher knew something was wrong. Somebody else who knew something was wrong is former NYPD detective Derek Parker, who's part of the department's intelligence unit that tracked rappers and their links to crime. It's good to see you, Detective. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Am I wrong to say that for a very long time, anybody with a brain knew that Puff Daddy wasn't just an upstanding citizen who sung good music and made a lot of money?
Well, back then, when I investigated Puffy and some of the incidents he was involved with, he was involved in certain things, but it was nothing like this. This is something that's been coming out.
You ever hear rumors?
There were always like talk of things at his parties and some of the things that he did, but I never saw that with him.
All right. I watched an interview with you earlier, and you said that there were some very powerful lawyers that Puff Daddy had to protect him from the investigations you were launching. Was there also some very powerful celebrities, very powerful influencers in New York as well that were trying to protect him? He was sort of too good to take down?
Well, no, not at that time. Puffy had problems because he had the shooting at Club New York with J-Lo, when J-Lo was with him. And then he had the shooting, he had the assault at MTV Studios with Steve Stout, and he refused to press charges, so we couldn't really go forward with that case back then. But, you know, Puffy and I got to know one another because every time he got into trouble, I had to go to see what was going on, or to arrest him, or to assist in arresting him.
All right, you say that you had to assist in arresting him on and on and on. Claims from some of the lawsuits. Ordered sex workers and prostitutes, ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms. That's documents from Rodney Little Rod Jones against somebody who was involved along with Puff Daddy. That he had an assistant, Diddy's chief of staff in a sex trafficking probe. Court documents in a lawsuit compare her to Ghislaine Maxwell. Describe for us Puff Daddy's world and how he sort of expanded that world from just rap culture to white parties in the Hamptons that became the place to be for the New York jet set crowd.
Well, back then when Puffy, when I retired and stuff, Puffy had his brand. His brand was Bad Boy Records. And also he did a lot with, radio and TV. And he did a lot of parties in the Hamptons and the city. He had some really good parties. Listen. He ran his parties where people, if you didn't show up dressed, you wouldn't get in. So he never had those kind of problems. However, like I said, some of the events that he did brought out a lot of celebrities and a lot of people, but it also brought out a lot of police too, because we had to watch and see who was coming and to make sure that there's no violence and no problems at some of these events that he threw.
I hear you there. What I can't get over is how, and you know this better than anybody from law enforcement, right? You never get caught cheating on your wife the first time. You never get caught drunk driving the first time, right?
Right.
If these allegations are true, they go back a long time. You listen to what Usher said. You listen to what Justin Bieber said. How are we to believe that none of these celebrities, that the law enforcement, that nobody had any idea of, if true, this really horrific behavior?
Well, if these allegations were true back then, a lot of people weren't going to come forward and talk. See, with the police department, we need cooperation. If you don't have cooperation or people that come forward and make complaints, then you don't really have a case. There's not really far you can go.
How long do you think till he ends up in handcuffs?
I'm sorry?
How long till you think he ends up in handcuffs?
How long did he end up in handcuffs?
No, yeah, how long till it happens, you think?
That's going to be probably soon. I would say the way the case is going right now, yes. I think they're going to have an indictment soon.
Well, and you think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to have to answer some uncomfortable questions about what they saw, what they knew, and if they did anything to cover it up. Detective, it's good to see you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Quick update for you on some breaking news from 1 year ago today, this being March 27th. We still don't have the manifesto of the transgender gunman who killed 6, including 3 children at the Nashville Covenant Christian School. You remember the story 1 year ago today. Right after the shooting, and it was a stunning turn of events, the Nashville police chief made a very direct and telling comment.
We have a manifesto. We have some writings that we're going over that pertain to this day, the actual incident. We have a map drawn out of how this was all going to take place.
366 days later, the story is gone, and we still don't have the manifesto or the maps. We still don't know why the shooter targeted a Christian elementary school. That would be important information for the public to have. Some parents want to keep it secret, others do not. To be fair, that makes sense maybe. Parents don't want their children's memory mixed with the shooter's motives, as deranged as they probably were. But what's weird is that the police, the Nashville police, the police chief that told us about the manifesto, now wants to keep it secret. Keeping manifestos secret of mass shooters is almost unheard of. When past shooters wrote about their reasons, it came out almost immediately. Andre Bing, Chesapeake, Virginia, published 3 days later. The Buffalo, New York shooter posted 2 days before the El Paso shooting, Texas shooter. Dylan Roof, who shot 9 at a black church in South Carolina, posted his months before, and the media loved to talk about Dylan Roof and his manifesto. There are more examples, of course, of the motives and the manifestos getting massive and immediate TV coverage. But 366 days since a transgender person shot up a Christian school, and we know very little about why what happened in Nashville happened, the why. And there doesn't appear to be that much interest in finding out by the media, and lots of effort by the police to keep it secret. You can decide why. Next, 2 of the Navy's most important ships, if there was a war, can't make it to sea right now. They're trapped in the Baltimore harbor. Why America keeps letting its guard down. And Biden calls in the cavalry. Can Barack Obama save his former Veep from losing to Donald Trump? The new push to help save Biden from himself. Plus, driving the F-150 didn't work, subsidies didn't work. The new way to make Americans buy and drive electric cars, whether they like it or not, and whether they work or not. Breaking news out of Baltimore, where rescue divers have just found the remains of 2 of the workers who fell off the bridge and about 175 feet down into the water below. You, of course, have seen the video. A 985-foot cargo vessel slammed in to the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Right now, further diving operations have been suspended because of unsafe conditions. The weather, the rain in Baltimore is getting quite ugly. The twisted wreckage of the Dolly cargo ship and Key Bridge will block Baltimore Harbor for months. That means at least 2 of the Navy's fast sea lift ships will be trapped for months, plus more reserve ships that are used to deliver weapons, tanks, and material around the world in the event of war, like, I don't know, perhaps a conflict with China. Admiral James Stavridis wrote about such a conflict in his New York Times bestseller, 2034. He and co-authors Elliot Ackerman are out with a sequel, 2054, and the Admiral is with us now. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Are we really this vulnerable?
I think we are, and this is a pretty good example of what a single port closure can do. And yes, Baltimore is very important. You mentioned the fast sea lift ships. We've got reserve ships. But what if this happened to Norfolk, the largest naval base in the world, or Mayport, Florida? What could an adversary do by shutting down one of our absolutely critical naval bases? And certainly this is a wake-up call for us, what has occurred in Baltimore.
Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, spoke about sort of what stunned everybody, really, which is that this ship can crash into a bridge that has so little protection and bring everything down and bring one of America's key transportation routes, I-95, to a standstill. Take a listen.
What we do know is a bridge like this one, completed in the 1970s, was simply not made to withstand a direct impact on a critical support pier from a vessel that weighs about 200 million pounds, orders of magnitude bigger than cargo ships that were in service in that region at the time that the bridge was first built.
All right, so we got old bridges and huge new ships. We've got new planes with a lot of computers so that pilots don't have to have as much training. Are we losing sight, big picture, of how dangerous the world is?
I would categorize it this way. We need to keep up with the speed at which things are changing. And in some zones, we do that reasonably well, say in microchips. but in big physical infrastructure like piers and trains and trucks moving across our highways, we're not keeping up with the speed that the supply chains demand of us. And I think we're going to feel the pain, for example, of this shutdown. Final thought here, think of it this way. The ship that hit that bridge is the size of the Empire State Building. It's just enormous. And yet, with the right kind of materials around the pilings on that bridge, it could have been shunted off one way or the other. So clearly, we have some work to do on our infrastructure.
You used to go in and out of that harbor all the time with ships roughly about the same size, a little bit bigger aircraft carriers. Do you buy that this is just a total accident?
I do. And let me put it this way. If the shutdown of power on that ship had occurred 5 minutes earlier, they would have had time to drop the anchor, to undertake a series of maneuvers, bring a tug in to bunt it aside. If it had happened 5 minutes later, it would have been already passed under the bridge. This is an extremely unlucky moment. You're showing some pictures of the old admiral as a young naval officer when I drove aircraft carriers around. They're big monsters. They're hard to stop. But if you have a little bit of time, you can change the course. The point at which the failure occurred was exquisite in terms of permitting the strike on the bridge.
You think about one of the things the military does so well is plan the multiple contingencies out, right, in terms of what can go wrong and at least trying to plan for a few of those. You make the point that we're not keeping up when it comes to critical infrastructure and the like, but that's what the government's core job is, right? What have we replaced as being priority number one if we're not keeping up with basic things like the ones you describe?
Clearly, we have got work to do in a number of big sectors, Leland. And I would put at the top of my list increasing our ability to protect ourselves in cybersecurity and from artificial intelligence. The book you mentioned a moment ago, 2054, looks ahead to mid-century. If we don't wake up, take control of all that is unfolding in front of us, we are going to be in choppy seas mid-century.
Yeah. Well, 2034 was about a conflict with China. 2054 looking ahead to AI. And I know there's going to be people who go, oh, it's a novel, it can't happen. Then I think about Tom Clancy's novel and some of the things that he predicted looking forward that now seem quite prescient in his view of the world. And I know your writing comes from long and deep knowledge, sir. It's good to see you as always. We always appreciate when you're able to join us.
Thanks, Leland. See you next time.
All right. Thanks, Admiral. Coming up next, better call Barack. Can Obama save his old VP's re-election chances? And place your bets. The big money wagers that Donald Trump will pick a female VP. Why Nikki Haley still has a fighting chance. The two most popular men in the Democratic Party will headline a fundraiser for Joe Biden tomorrow. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama will meet President Biden in New York to raise an awful lot of money. And it's not just about the money. They're doing a lot more. Obama, in particular, is helping with strategy, talking to his old VP regularly, as well as the White House chief of staff with advice. The New York Times cites Mr. Obama's grave concerns that Mr. Biden could lose to former President Donald J. Trump. The aide, speaking to the New York Times, who is not authorized to speak publicly, said that Mr. Obama has always been worried about a Biden loss. Chris Hahn is here, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. You remember that famous quote by Obama in Politico? Never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up, right? Is that at play here?
No, I think that Obama is one of the most popular people in America, and you want to bring him in. Now, I would use him more like Mariano Rivera, bring him in the ninth inning, enter Sandman, close the game out. But I think that
is that a baseball reference?
That is a baseball reference.
I have no idea who you were talking
about.
Baseball
starts tomorrow. Mariano Rivera, the greatest closer of all time.
Okay.
Look him up after the show.
Right. You get points with George Will. Keep going.
Yes. So what I'm saying is, look, Obama's a very popular guy. His advice on politics is very valuable. But more importantly, him showing up, saying, hey, we need to all be here for this, and try to pull back the coalition that elected Obama in record numbers in 2008. That would be a great thing.
All right, look, Obama in a way is a lot like Trump, right? Because they were phenomenal campaigners for themselves, right, and didn't do much in terms of having coattails. I'm wondering if there's not also a risk here. Take a listen to Donald Trump back in October of 2023.
This is obliteration, and Obama has plenty to do with it. Obama has plenty to do with it. I call him Biden's boss.
No, I don't think anybody cares what Trump says on that. Look, Obama's there to bring the Democratic base home to Biden, right? One of the problems Biden has right now, it shows up in the polls, is that Democrats haven't come home yet. They will come home. Obama helps with that.
All right, fair enough. And look, 3,000 people expected to attend, $10 million, $100,000 for a picture with Biden, Obama, and Clinton together. If you're on Joe Biden's mailing list, as I am.
I am too.
Yeah,
I've gotten a lot of these.
You've gotten a lot of offers to have
showing
lunch
up in
with
my
the three of them.
Feeds too.
Yeah,
it's amazing how that
lunch
works
with the three of them. Cheapest ticket's $250, and Stephen Colbert will be there. Here is Biden and Colbert in 2017.
The only point I'm making is we're talking about like this was a wave election, and somehow...
Only he is. Only he's talking like that. Nobody said I could win. Nobody said.
Well...
Biggest electoral victory of all time. Of all time, Joe. Of all time. I'm sorry your lady lost, but the biggest of all time.
Never mind how much different Biden is in 2017 than he is now. Colbert is going to be the moderator of this fireside chat. Can you imagine Johnny Carson in 1980, headlining a fundraiser for Jimmy Carter?
No, I couldn't. Times have changed, right? Networks have stars who have opinions. Colbert clearly has an opinion, and his audience has an opinion too, and the opinion are pretty identical, right? They don't like Trump. So there it is. He's going to be out there, and he'll be emceeing it. And by the way, we all love Steve. I love Stephen Colbert. I think he's hilarious. And I think
but the rest of America doesn't.
No,
I think his ratings suck.
Well, his ratings are actually pretty good for where he's at. I take his ratings right now. I think he does okay. And he's funny. I think he's funny. I think everybody's going to have a sense of humor.
Yeah, because you're a New York liberal.
I'm a Long Island liberal.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, we want lower property taxes. Or something,
all right.
Something like that.
we'll work on that. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you, too.
Thank you. Of course, Mr. Biden says he will stick with Kamala Harris as his running mate. Arguably, she hurts him on the ticket, but he doesn't really have a choice. The betting markets now predict Trump will pick a woman, too. Predicted has 3 women in the top 4 spots, 6 in the top 9. Associate research scholar, lecturer in politics and public affairs at Princeton University, Lauren Wright is here. Lauren, it's nice to have you follow Han, right? Okay.
Yes, and I was laughing.
While I'm talking to him.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. First of all, does it even matter who he picks for VP?
Not really, because he has almost 100% name recognition, and most people have made up their minds on Trump. The people who have not are Nikki Haley voters that he absolutely needs to bring on board, and those people that took a shot with him in 2016 and just are begging for a reason to get back into the fold, but are alienated by a lot of the personal attacks, election fraud stuff, and the court cases.
All right, at some point as you look at this, you think about the top people. Tim Scott is number 1, Kristi Noem, Tulsi Gabbard, Elise Stefanik, Byron Donalds, congressman from Florida. Nikki Haley rounds out the top 6 there. If he does pick Nikki Haley, right, that changes the dynamic.
That would be a great choice, but even though Nikki Haley might accept the post, Trump has way too many personal grievances with her at this point to extend that olive branch. She used to be in his administration. He sees it as a slap in the face and as someone who's sort of a traitor, and that's probably not going to happen, even though it would be the best thing for the GOP, for sure.
Yeah, you and I always have a difference of opinion on this. I'm sort of old school when it comes to Donald Trump in terms of how the romance of reconciliation that he loves. Han's looking at me with a weird face. Okay, it's not fair, but
I would love
look,
to see
it was
the romance of reconciliation.
Yeah, it was Mick Mulvaney who said that, not me. So anyway, this is what I want to ask you about, and I think you were the perfect person for this segment, and here's why. I was trying to find the article while you were talking. I wasn't not paying attention. Front page of the Wall Street Journal right now is a picture of Kristi Noem looking down at Donald Trump as Trump walks up the stairs. Is VP contender Kristi Noem ready for prime time? South Dakota governor on Trump's shortlist faces scrutiny on everything from abortion policy to her new smile. Do women as VP picks ever get a fair shake?
I mean, women have to walk a tightrope when they campaign. There's no doubt about that. But there aren't differences in election rates at this point. Some women, especially in the Republican Party, my research shows, actually have certain advantages when they run. And some Republican women are very, very popular right now. And so if the question is she ready for prime time? Can she withstand the scrutiny? Can she do these tough interviews and appeal to moderates? I don't know, but certainly she's well known and she has executive experience. And I'm sure Trump loves her because she's loyal to him and her policy platform is essentially exactly the same.
All right, we tried to get Han off the set. We really tried, but he wouldn't leave. And I'm glad he stayed, actually. I'm glad he stayed, actually, because it gives me an opportunity to ask another question.
Nobody tapped me on the shoulder and said, come on.
Oh, they'll be tapping you, don't worry. This is the question, though, okay? And you said, I thought you were very fair when you made this point earlier.
Right.
That Nikki Haley is Democrats' worst dream as a general election candidate. You said that during the primary.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Is that true also for her being a general election candidate?
I think she would be the best possible person he could pick for vice president.
That would be the scariest.
Yeah, but I agree with Lauren. He will not. And I do not believe Trump has a romance of reconciliation. I've heard you guys talk about it. I've laughed at you about this before.
You've laughed about me about a lot of things.
Yeah, well, we laugh at each other. That's why we're good friends. It is what it is, right? I don't think Trump is ever going to say, oh, this woman who was bad-mouthing me for 6 months, let's have her in the party right now. Let's give her the VP. I don't think that's going to happen. I also don't think that his base would be happy about that, which could be a bigger problem. But I do think it would make sense in a general election.
All right, I'm going to give both of you all my case here, and then you can both tell me why I'm wrong. Okay. Donald Trump picked Mike Pence, not because he agreed with him on anything, not because he particularly liked him. And in fact, Donald Trump made fun of Mike Pence as governor of Indiana because he wasn't wealthy and he hadn't made a lot of money in the private sector. But he realized that Mike Pence brought home evangelical voters and brought home Christian conservatives. Those are two things that Donald Trump really needed. Nikki Haley brings suburban women to the table, and she brings swing voters. And she reassures people that the mean tweets aren't going to be a huge issue because she's the vice president, on and on and on and on. I think Donald Trump is that pragmatic. Is there a reason he's not, Lauren?
The personal grievances. And with Mike Pence, it was really a decision of reassurance. Can I give people, evangelicals in particular, a reason to vote Republican this year? And he just needs to draw a contrast to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden by looking like Team Normal. It needs to be someone with policies that are as moderate or more moderate than his, and that will balance out the craziness that surrounds Trump, if possible.
All right, you get the last one.
I agree with everything she just said. He needs somebody normal. Nikki Haley is normal. Yes. There is 20% of the party right now that are still showing up to vote against him in primaries that are over. And she will probably bring them back. And I think elections are about addition, not subtraction. Donald Trump has forgotten that, which is why he won't pick her.
Well, we'll see if he's forgotten it. All right.
All right.
See you. Lauren, thank you as always. It's good to see you. Hope when we're back on set, we'll deal with this later.
Somebody's going to come and get me, right?
Yeah, there we go. You're leaving now. All right. Thank you both. Speaking of vice presidential candidates, we have some breaking news tonight. Former Connecticut Senator and Al Gore's vice presidential pick, Joe Lieberman, died at the age of 82. Lieberman was a fiercely independent senator, unafraid to cross party lines. We need people like that right now. He's from a different generation. It's the type of independent senator that's seemingly lost in today's political climate, and he was never afraid to play that role. Joe Lieberman died at 82. May his memory be a blessing. Next. First, they tried advertising, then tax incentives, then flat-out shaming. None of it worked. 8 states are now taking the next step to make EVs the only new cars available. That's it. Only electric. Why this latest push is bound to end up like all of the others.
said no biting.
Or if you're being voluntarily kidnapped, why not be kidnapped in an EV? What's that scent? Is it pine? Now, should they add EVs everywhere? They shalln't.
Yeah, that was one of the many ads for electric vehicles that did not work at all. The advertising didn't work. The commander-in-chief driving an electric Ford F-150 didn't work, nor did the electric F-150, but that's a different story. $7,500 subsidies for EVs didn't work. Shaming people over climate change didn't work. Nobody buys EVs. General Motors lost $1.5 billion because of EV investment. Ford lost $4.7 billion. Mercedes gave up its all-EV dream. So after all that, beatings will now continue until morale improves. There is a new plan to make us all buy electric vehicles. 8 states plan to ban the sale of gas-powered cars entirely by 2032. California, Rhode Island, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, and Washington. California State Senator Scott Wiener is with us now. Appreciate you joining us, sir. Thank you. Is this a little bit like legislating that we all eat our peas or something?
No, I don't think so. This is, frankly, the direction that we're heading. And of course, we'd always love to get there faster, but we need to move in that direction. Climate change is upon us. We have better and better technology in terms of zero emission vehicles, hybrids as well. And that's the direction we need to move. It's only going to get better and better, and we need to go there. We can't just keep burning fossil fuels.
If we put the climate change argument to the side, and I know there's a lot there, but you know, the government didn't have to mandate that the horse and buggy went out of business and was banned from roads. They didn't have to mandate standard transmissions were somehow banned or illegal or anything like that. The market demanded that. Wouldn't it be easier to have electric cars that were good enough, and then everybody would just buy those?
Well, it's both, and we can't just forget about climate change even for a moment. When we see the fires that are burning, and not just in California or the West Coast, in Texas and elsewhere, and the stronger hurricanes, and people can't get flood insurance anymore. This is just getting worse and worse. And so we have to, it is different than transitioning from the horse and buggy. But let's also be clear that the technology in the cars are getting better and better. The EVs of today are much better than they were 3 years or 5 years ago, and they're less expensive as well. And the infrastructure is getting better because people sometimes are... Yeah.
I hear you, but I also know that in California, there's times that you've got to ban charging of EVs because it's too hot and the electrical grid can't sustain it. And I know there's times in Chicago the EVs don't work because it gets too cold. I understand the idea, and I was saying not put aside whether the climate's changing, put aside whether or not going to EVs is actually going to fix it or not, because there's some questions there. I'm just trying to think of, in reality, when you legislate stuff, we tried this, right? We tried, prohibition. Didn't work. We tried the war on drugs. Of all people in California, I think you'd say, like, mandating people to do something or to buy something or not buy something they don't want historically hasn't worked, has it?
Well, first of all, yeah. Like when we mandated that people wear seatbelts, that has saved countless lives. But in terms of the electric grid, that's a much broader issue. We have a big problem in this country around the electric grid overall. It goes well beyond EVs, and we have to invest in that and fix that. And President Biden has been leading on that. So I don't want to we shouldn't be defeatists. We have a problem. We need to address it. We have the technology to address it. And if we can stop burning oil and start using clean energy instead, we should do that. I appreciate
you say I get the idea that we have the technology, but it doesn't play out. In the market has spoken. Consumers say they don't want it, even after all the advertising, all the subsidies, and everything else. Why not at least wait until the power grid can sustain it before mandating it?
Well, first of all, EV sales are going up. It's, again, not as quickly as we want. And in terms of the power grid, let's do both. And it will give us a much bigger incentive to get it right on the grid as we start electrifying more things. And we have to electrify more things. Again, Mother Nature is telling us that we need to electrify more things. I don't want to see more of these wildfires expanding to more and more parts of the country. I don't want it so that people can't get insurance anymore because of climate change. Let's fix the problem.
Well, I think reasonable people can disagree whether or not electrifying every car in America is going to fix the problem or not in terms of bringing down temperatures. The data I've seen doesn't show that it's there. But again, put that to the side. I want to focus just here on the EV issue. Isn't it always the poorest among us who get hurt by this the most? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That it's always the poorest families who are going to be forced to buy EVs that are way more expensive than they can afford. That's what we see in the data. And they're going to be forced to pay electricity prices, even in California, where electricity prices are through the roof.
Well, first of all, the prices of EVs are coming down, and over the next decade, 15 years, they're going to come down even more. We absolutely, subsidies should particularly be focused on the people who financially need it the most. And in California, we provide lower rates for people who are low income in terms of electricity, and we should be doing that. So we have a role to play to help people, but let's also be clear that the lowest income people are the most harmed by climate change. They're the most harmed by pollution. They are the most likely to live in areas that are impacted by climate change, and so let's keep that in mind as well.
All right, fair enough. Senator, we always appreciate someone who's willing to come on and have a reasoned discussion, as you are. Thank you. We appreciate it. And if you're ever in D.C., we'd love to have you on set, all right?
I'd love that. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, we would as well. Thank you very much. We wrote about this a lot today in War Notes. That's our daily newsletter. Comes out at 4 p.m. every day. Our thoughts on the most important stories of the day, and your thoughts as well. You can reply to the email. We read them all. We read some of them on air and respond. You can also talk to us on social media at Leland Vittert on Instagram and Twitter as well. We'll have some of your thoughts, especially about our Baltimore coverage tomorrow. Coming up next, something maybe we can all get behind, literally anybody else. We now actually have a choice other than Trump or Biden. It's a high school teacher who changed his name to give America a choice, and we have his driver's license, his actual driver's license. Literally anybody else. Mr. Else tells us why we should take him both literally and seriously next.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Evils remains a vote for evil, and so I would prefer not to vote for either candidate.
I want something new. I want new people. I want new, fresh mindset.
And I really don't want to see either one of them in the White House next year.
I don't want to vote for Trump. It makes me sick to my stomach, and I also might just write a name in, or leave it blank.
The vast majority of the American people want a different choice than Biden or Trump. And they aren't that particular, as you heard. We heard it a lot out on the campaign trail, literally anybody else. And now, that is an option. Literally anybody else. We checked. That is his legal name. He's a high school teacher in Texas and trying to get on the ballot in all 50 states. Is it now Mr. Else? Is that how I should address you, sir?
My legal name is literally anybody else.
All right, so you're a teacher. Yeah, you're a teacher. Are you trying to teach the students a little bit about the way America works these days?
Yes, not through this. I've kept that separate from my work life. It's definitely, I had to come to an agreement with the district that I work in, because I don't want the sensationalism to get in the way of the education of the students. That's first and foremost why we're there.
All right,
but,
fair.
This to me, is a message that needed to be sent.
Are you surprised? Take us all the way back to the beginning. You got to the courthouse. You said, I want to change my name to literally anybody else. Were they surprised?
Well, she was not amused. She was dealing with some very, very intense divorce cases. And when she saw me, you get the kind of knee-jerk reaction you get from anything, where it's just like, for dealing with this, is this serious? Do you want to be that guy? And, I was like, somebody has to. We're dealing with this situation where we have the rematch of the two most disliked candidates in a very long time. And so, like you showed in the little preview, I'm not the only one. And the point of having this name, and having this name running for president, it kind of gives voice, it gives a direction for anybody who resonates with that sentiment. And, for me, was a difficult choice, to open myself up to that kind of criticism, because you cannot run for president without opening yourself up to criticism, and being that vulnerable is very uncomfortable.
I ask this with an enormous amount of respect, but are you really running for president, or are you just trying to make a point?
Honestly, I'm trying to make a point. That's the first and foremost goal. But
is it working?
You know, to make the point, you have to move forward for sure. I mean, ever since that first interview on Friday, you know, that was less than a week ago. You know, I've been getting hundreds and hundreds, and if I sat down and counted, probably over 1,000, these positive messages. I mean, I got sent a Instagram post today that had over 10,000 views in a very short amount of time. You know, that's nothing to, a big news station like yourself, but to someone who was unknown 7 days ago, that growth, if that continues, I feel like that should make a huge impact on at least how the parties move forward.
All right, we got about 30 seconds left together. Is there any singular policy proposals that the American people need to know that you offer?
I feel like policies should be reflective of the people who are being represented, and not necessarily say, my policies are X and Y, you decide if you fit in them or not. Because that's, I feel like, how we got here.